Hi guys, today we're going to add a new component, which is going to be an actor component. So by creating blueprints, previously we created actors, and now using a blueprint we're going to create a component which is attachable to an actor. By doing that, we are going to then add the ability to call a particular function of that blueprint so that we can communicate with that blueprint from any other blueprint. And then what we'd like to do, currently we have this cube, which is something that we use in order to activate this pressure plate and then collect the prize. We're going to turn this cube into a blueprint, and then we're going to spawn it dynamically as we have done before. So we're going to just mix things up a little bit by adding a new actor component, which is going to be attached to something. I don't know what that something is just yet. And we're going to call that in order to create this cube, so it doesn't kind of exist as part of the level when the game starts. And this adds a new level to this puzzle, essentially. Making a blueprint out of an actor is super easy. Just click this blue button called Blueprint. Let's call it GameCube and place it inside third-person BP blueprints so that we know where all of our blueprints are. And just like that, it has become a blueprint that we can modify and change. Compile, save. Don't forget about these kind of habits to compile and save to ensure that you don't lose your work. And now we can just get rid of this one because we don't need it, right? Just in case, I'm going to place it over there for now because we want to test first. And testing could be as simple as adding a new input, project settings, input, new action mapping. Call it dev spawn1. These are useful when you want to just do things. They're for developers only, kind of thing. I'm looking for F, I think. Let's go with F. So this dev spawn1 is going to create a GameCube. Third-person character. It's getting bigger. Shall we create a comment here so that we know what this thing is? Yeah, just select all, right click on one of the nodes, and then there will be a button to create comment from selection. Let's rename this to pickup physics object, and then that is just doing its physics update for the pickup. Picked up objects. That's a bit better. It's like documenting your code, I suppose. Right, what we want to test is dev something, dev spawn. We want this to spawn an actor from class. That class is the one that we just created, GameCube. There it is. Anything else we want to do? Spawn transform. How about we split this? Rotation and scale are fine. Spawn transform location, we probably want to get actor location, which is where we are. And then I suppose we want to do like the forward vector stuff again, which we already done previously somewhere. Get forward vector from the actor, multiply it by something like 1, maybe 200, and then add to this add vector, which is where we are, and that gives us the point which is before the player. Compile, save, and then run. So when we press F, we have this cube that we can play with. We can then use E to pick it up, and then we can drop it with E again, and then the game continues. Yeah, that's fine. We no longer need this bit, so delete that. But being able to spawn cubes is only for developers, right? So we don't want to allow the player to do that, which is why we need to come up with a mechanism, an in-game mechanism that allows us to integrate it into gameplay somehow. Maybe there's going to be a button, maybe on that wall. How about that? We're going to press that button and something's going to happen. A cube will be spawned somewhere, I guess. I think this will be sufficient for us to demonstrate the new ActorComponent stuff that we're going to create. Okay, for that, let's just browse starter content. What kind of stuff we have there? Yeah, props. I'm looking for a prop that I can use as a button. Not many things. How about this one? Lamp. Yeah, it's okay. It's half of a lamp, I guess, because the other half is kind of embedded. Something like that. Yeah, let's turn this into a blueprint, and then we can do some stuff with it. Again, press that blue button. Let's call it button, I guess. It's not where we want to place it. We want to place it somewhere else. It's third-person BP blueprints, because we want all blueprints to go there. It just helps with organizing stuff. Select. We now have a blueprint. Let's make it. Let's make the mesh a bit bigger. Make it uniform scale. Is this? Yeah. Is it too big? Let's go with that, and then we'll see how this looks. It's okay. It's fine. I'm going to put it down because I want to reuse the same code, I guess, to activate the stuff, the one that we're using for picking up things. So the use action, essentially. And for that, it needs to be, because we're array casting from the player's center rather than from the player's head. It needs to be the same level, more or less. Like when we press E on it, we want to be able to collide with it. Maybe a little bit lower, something like that. Okay, so that completes the thing. We need a new blueprint now. Right-click inside the blueprints directory, select blueprint class, but not actor. ActorComponent is what we want this time. It's kind of like a component in Unity or FXGL, and it allows you to add new functionality. Let's call it usable component. So if we are going to attach this component to an actor, that means the actor has the ability to be activated, used. Like, think of any game that you've played recently. There must be some kind of an object with which you can interact. Maybe a drawer which you can open and close. Maybe something like a lever or a door button that you can interact with. You do something with it, and it allows you to then run some in-game code. So this is our actor component that we just created. If you double click on that, you can open the Blueprint editor, in which we're going to add an event dispatcher. It's like saying when something, when a function is called on this usable component, I'm going to redirect that function call to something else. That's quite useful. You're able to reuse your component without the need to add anything concrete. So we're creating an abstract component. Abstract in a sense, like in programming, you have abstract classes, for example. The actual implementation is down to each individual blueprint that is going to make use of this component. Let's call it onUseDispatcher. Instance editable, and compile, save. Now go back to our button, add component. You should now be able to find your usable component here. And you will find in the events submenu that there is onUse available. Click on the plus symbol, and it will redirect you to the event graph, where you can call functions that are very specific to the button blueprint, which is what we want. And just to demonstrate the benefit of this being abstract, when we say inside the player blueprint, when we say something like press the use button, and then whatever object we hit, if it has the usable component, then call that function. So we don't actually care about specific functions, concrete functions of blueprints. We're calling an abstract function called onUse, which in turn will then invoke the specific function that we want. And that specific function could live inside the blueprint itself, for example. So we can create a function, and this function could be spawn cube. We're just going to spawn a cube. No, that's a function that we just created. That's not going to work. Spawn actor from class. The class is GameCube that we created earlier. In fact, I need to basically copy and paste this. Though this time, it's not the player's location, it's the location of the lamp. So we may want to make some changes, because we're going to be standing in front of the lamp when we do this. So maybe just a little bit in front of the lamp, and then we're going to add another vector, I think, which is going to move the thing upwards, because we want to spawn like from space above the player. Z positive up. So 150, and that goes into the spawn we need to split this spawn location. That's the function to be called, which lives inside the button blueprint. And in the event graph, we said that we're going to bind this thing to that thing, which is spawn cube. Don't need these. So here we're saying whenever somebody calls on use of the usable component that is attached to this button, then in turn call this function. Compile, save that. So now in our player blueprint, we need to collide with this thing, or essentially look at this thing using line trace, identify the actor that we're looking at, and then use that to obtain the usable component of that actor, should it exist. And this is the powerful bit. We don't really care if it exists or not, which makes our code more robust. And then if it exists, then do something with it. That's something that we can do in third-person character. We no longer need this developer stuff. Delete that. Okay, so we're going to essentially duplicate that bit, right? Because we need to know what we're looking at. Okay, let's extract this into a function. So we're going to select these, the actor location, the forward vector, which gives us the point, the end point of the line, and also the line trace node. Right click, and then you should be able to find collapse to function. If you do that, you're going to get this, which is extremely useful. It's like you're working in an IDE and you're saying refactor this code into a method or into a function. And then you're able to rename the function as well, which is new function 0. But let's call it get look hit result or something. And we should then be able to reuse this function for other purposes, like this one. And since we want to use the same key, which is E, for both picking up stuff and also being able to use actions of actors, we need to have a branch here somewhere, I think. So return value is true. That means we hit something. And then if we hit something, we probably want to check if the actor has the component. Let's try that and then we'll see what happens. Get component by class. Usable component. And then you would be done here if we only did one functionality. But since we're going to add to stuff that we already have in here, this might get a little bit more complex. Hopefully not too much. So we're going to check is valid because not everything has usable component. Is valid returns 1 billion. If it is valid, then we want to call the usable component. If not, then we want to grab that object. So we need another branch which comes from this branch. And the condition is if the thing that we're looking at has a usable component. If yes, then don't do this. This is the false branch, break the true branch, and that true comes to calling the usable components on use. Call on use, there we go. This goes here. It's not too bad. Right, so in high-level terms, what we did here is we're pressing E. We're then checking the actors that we're looking at, or the players looking at. We're then checking if we actually looking at something. If not, then don't do anything. And that don't do anything is where this thing ends, the false. You can see that it's not connected to anything. If we are looking at something, then we need to figure out what it is that we're looking at. Is it something that we can grab, or is it something that we can use? If it's something that we can use, which is checked by this branch, because we're obtaining the usable component of the actor that we hit, and we're checking if its return value is valid, basically not null. If it's not null, that means the thing that we're looking at can be used, and therefore we can call its on use function. If the thing that we're looking at cannot be used, then try to grab it. So you can see that there is no check here for if we can grab it. So if you want to, you can add another branch here to make sure that the thing that we're grabbing is actually meaningful to grab, because you don't want to grab things that you don't want to grab, I guess, like parts of the level. Now let's try if this thing works. So save first and then check. So there are no cubes here in this level. We're going to press E just because nothing happens, and that's fine. At least the game doesn't crash. Let's press escape. The game doesn't crash. Okay, that's fine. And there are no error messages. Let's play. Then look at this thing and press E. Anything? No, don't see anything. Oh, there we go. That was fun. So we need to get a little bit closer. Okay, let's try it one more time. So if I get really close to it, I'm looking right at it, press E, and there's a cube, which is spawned just above it, which is fine. And then I assume, because these are game cubes, these are the ones that we defined earlier. So if we look at this thing now, E, I can collect it, drag it around, and press E again to release it. So there's quite a lot of stuff that we've bound to the action triggered by E, which is quite common in games. Like there's one global use key with which you can use a lot of interesting things. Like you can get into a vehicle, you can pick up ammo, you can pick up things, you can activate dialogue. And I'm assuming that we can also press E again to release on that thing. It collides with a pressure plate. The pressure plate is activated, and we can now collect the prize and complete the level. So we've added an extra layer of complexity to our puzzle. Now we need to press the button, which is our lamp, grab the cube, place the cube on the pressure plate, and then collect the prize. So for future videos, I'll try to think of other ways to enhance the puzzle while still introducing new concepts that we can make use of. So it's not just concepts for the sake of concepts, something that we can use in order to enhance our little puzzle that we have. Right, so just a brief recap. What we did today was we created an actor component. We turned some in-game actors into blueprints. using the actor component, we added a new event dispatcher, which allowed us to then customize what happens when a generic call is made on that dispatcher. We also extracted some common functionality into a function by just clicking extract, or more specifically clicking collapse to function. And that allowed us to reuse the same function for multiple things. We also added a few branch statements here, which are like if-else statements, which allowed us to add more than one functionality to the E trigger. And then everything else should be reasonably straightforward. On that note, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.